Sith Empire. Now, I'm gonna pose the question for you. Do you think the Sith Empire would have survived if Darth Bane was not a Sith Lord? Now, that's the question. Now, I'm going to go through why I think it would have, and then I'm also going to cover, well, mainly that, because I think that the rule of two was mainly just Darth Bane trying to consolidate power for himself and himself only. That's why it was bound to fail. But anyway, so the Sith Empire was ruled by a Sith Emperor, and under him was a council. Now, of course, in this case, it would be the Dark Council, which is what would be his... Basically, they would oversee a different area. And they were all Sith. Now, of course, there were conscripted soldiers and everything, and there were guards, but there were also droids. So, there were Sith war droids that were as well. So, the Sith Empire in itself would have succeeded. Oddly enough, as I said before, Darth Bane decided, because of all the cutthroats, I'm going to make the rule of two. But here's the thing. No matter how many Sith were killed, more took their place. Within the Sith Empire, there was a Sith Academy. That's where they trained to become Sith apprentices. And from there, they would be chosen by a Sith Lord, and they would be that Sith Lord's apprentice. Now, Darth, like Darth Vader, Darth Sidious, the title of Darth was given to the most high-ranking of Siths. Of course, you had your Sith Lords, but then you had your Darths. Those were the guys really up there. Well, not just the guys, but the males and the females that were really up there. Now, a lot of this information comes from the Legends game, Star Wars Old Republic. Now, it's the computer game, and of course you can play as whatever, either the Republic or the Sith Empire. But as I said, I'm covering the Sith Empire, and I'm using this as the basis for all my facts. For fact one, if you played the game, you'll notice that there were plenty of Sith. No matter how many died, how many were killed, an equal amount of Jedi were also killed. But like I said, there was the Sith Academy. Now, at the start of the game, of course, your character depending who you play as. If you choose one of the two Sith classes, then yes, you will start at the Academy. And you can see there are a lot of students. A lot. If you play as an Inquisitor, of course, your character eventually becomes Darth, depending on your choices. Now, I'm going to use this as an example. Darth Nox. That is your character. You are Darth Nox. Your whole thing is you start out as a slave. Then you eventually find out you're Sith nobility. And of course, your master tries to betray you and so on and so forth. But the thing is, you wind up killing another Darth and taking his place on the Dark Council. And of course you have your apprentices and your crew, but you go from being a Sith Lord to a Darth. And as no matter, you kill the one, you take his place, and of course there's others that follow. And of course there's those loyal to you and there's those loyal to him. And then if you play the other class, that which is very interesting, you become the Empire's wrath. You literally, along with your choices, no matter what they are, you can borderline between light and dark, you can go completely light, or you can go completely dark. Same with the Inquisitor class when you're playing Darth Nox. The whole thing is, there are plenty of Sith as you look. No matter how many, and same with Jedi. At that time, the Sith and the Jedi were on equal footing. So, for the Sith, for them to find those, of course, one, there were those they find that they can corrupt. There are those that were, say, on a captured planet they would find. And of course, they would send them to the academy to train and to become Sith. So no matter what, the ranks were still bolstered and even, equal. Now, let's fast forward to the time of Darth Bane. Real quick. Darth Bane, at that time, there was no emperor, but Darth Bane wanted the power for himself. And then he made it to where, because of all the cutthroatness, he said, oh, I'm going to make it to where there's only 2 allowed at a time. That was doomed to fail. Flat out doomed to fail. Because in other games, canon games, canon shows, canon comics, you find out that there are more Sith around, but they're hiding so that they don't attract attention. But this is where I said the rule of 2 failed. It's because these Sith were in hiding and were keeping themselves hidden. And case in point, I will have to say this. The planet in the 9th movie, when you go to the Sith Eternal, you find out there is a Sith cult made up of Sith priests. And Sith scientists. And so, as you can see, Darth Bane's whole rule of 2 wasn't really the smartest idea. Now, back to the Empire. Would it have survived? Yes. As long as there was a leader that was stronger than all of them. Now, of course, you find out, yeah, you kill him, he jumps bodies, blah, blah, blah. But there's always someone better taking that place. When that next strongest one steps up, then depending on how you play it, it could be an empress or it can be an emperor. Now, so with all that said and done and pointed out, I believe as long as the Dark Council and the ruler, the Sith Emperor or Empress, no matter who it was at the time, I believe the Empire would have still flourished. There was still a chance. I'm pretty sure and positive, not pretty sure, I'm deadly positive that the Empire would have survived. Now, of course, then they probably would have become an era of peace like there was in this, but I think mostly the Sith would have stick to the Outer Realm, because at the same time as the Galactic Republic, they would have demolished the military except for the Sith, the whole Sith thing. Of course, they would have their academy. They still train new Sith, and they would still be on an equal footing with the Jedi. There would be a true balance between light and dark. When Darth Bane created the rule of two, there was an imbalance of light to dark. So, back to my point. Your about the choices of your character in the game. So, Darth Nox, if you played an equal amount of your decision, saying light and dark, you would have, of course, became Darth Nox. Now, there were two other names. I can't remember them. I haven't played the game in a while. One if you were fully light, one if you were fully dark. But if you were in between that fine line, if you were striding that fine line between both, of course, it would be Darth Nox. So, and the same with the Empire's Wrath. I think if you went an equal amount of light and dark, you would have straddled the line, but yet you would still be respected for one and one reason only. Because you're loyal. That's the whole point. You're loyal to the Empire. You don't want to destroy it. You're loyal to it. That's why Darth Maul gives your character the name, changes it from the Emperor's Wrath to the Empire's Wrath. And you're basically known as Lord Wrath throughout the game. So you become a Sith Lord, and you get the name Wrath, pretty much. So you can call it whatever you want, but it's pretty much that. And you're everybody in the Sith Empire respects, fears, respect and fears you. But you pretty much are above the dark. Well, not above, but you can take orders from the Emperor and the Council itself. So you're pretty much on an equal footing, pretty much there. Yes, I think if Darth Bane hadn't did what he did, the Empire would flourish. The Empire would still be around. And of course, the Empire would most definitely, which I will cover this in my what if, somewhat. I'll give you a preview basically right here. It's the Empire would back the CIS, because the whole point of the CIS is they're fighting against the corruption within the Galactic Republic. So, but yet there's even though they're backed by the corruption itself, they're still seeking their own government. They don't want to answer to the Republic anymore. I believe the Sith Empire would join the CIS, and they would be the counter to the Jedi generals. because they would be the Sith generals that fight against the Jedi. They'd be deployed where the Jedi would be deployed. And it would put them on an equal footing. Now, would the clones still exist? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would, but I don't think they would have the inhibitor chips. They would just be a bred army for the Republic. And of course, the Kaminoans would not create the chips, but all that will be discussed in later chapters of the What If. But I do believe the Sith Empire would back the CIS because this would be their chance to fight the Jedi and the Republic itself, because as I said, the government of the Sith would be, if you looked at the CIS government, it was kind of like a spin-off version of the Sith Empire's government. Like with that, like Sidious was the top, then of course you had Dooku and the council, and then the CIS Senate. So of course different branches, a little bit different than what the Sith Empire's was, but it was there if you looked at it. The whole point, and plus if you look at the CIS emblem, it kind of looked exactly like the Empire's emblem from the Sith Empire. There was a copying, basically. The CIS was the precursor to the later Empire that later rose after Sidious took power. But the CIS emblem was that of the old Sith Empire. So, and I think they would have surely thrown their lots in. They would have led the droids, but I think they would have modified the droids. The B1, from the B1s all the way to the Ultra droids, and I'm pretty sure they would have, instead of what Sidious did in the game, destroyed the Ultra battle droids. My bad, I said Zoids. The battle droids. They would have built them, deployed them, and used them. Because if they weren't there and the Jedi showed up, the Ultra battle droids, or B3s as they would have been known, would have been a countermeasure to the Jedi. And the Sith would have most definitely approved it. Especially the Emperor or Empress. As I said, if you played the game, there are droids and human soldiers. So I think that when the Empire, say if the CIS won, the Sith Empire would have been the ruling body of government at the time, and they would have taken Coruscant and used it as their capital, or they would have stayed in their capital, or the Emperor would have stayed in his capital, and if he would have appointed, or the Empress, and they would have appointed a overseer, a governor, if you will, to oversee the Republic side. So yeah, there is no doubt in my mind that Sith Empire could have survived if it wasn't for Darth Bane. I'm positive 100% that the Sith Empire would have definitely been a really good factor in the war. Their presence would have made it on equal footing. I also think that the stormtroopers would also be conscripted conscripted soldiers in the Imperial Army still. Possibly. I think, of course, there would probably be conscripted soldiers in the Republic later on to help bolster the clones. But other than that, yeah, I think the Empire would have survived if not for Darth Bane. And if you play the game Star Wars The Old Republic, you would see it yourself. You're playing it, you're living it, you're seeing it. There you go. Everything would have been answered. And it would have been completely and utterly awesome. So, yeah, I know I've been repeating myself a lot. I'm kind of tired. I'm at work. But I still want to do these videos. So I think the Empire, as I said before, they would have, after the whole Naboo crisis, when they would have got involved, they would have upgraded the B1s and been involved in the creation of the B2s, and everything would have worked out a little better. And I think their whole plan would have came in, but yet there would be an equal footing of droids, clones, but the Jedi and the Sith fighting each other in a more active fight would have been better. Not the whole Dooku, his dark side acolytes, and Sidious being the whole running both sides. Now, if there was like I said, the Emperor versus the Chancellor, them two making all the decisions and giving them to those below them, that would have been a better outcome, if you think about it. I mean, it would also explain how the Sith Empire's emblem was used in the CIS. So, with that being said, let me know down in the comments below, what do you think? Do you agree with Darth Bane's Rule of Two? Or do you agree with what I said, how the Sith Empire would have survived still and been a perfect counter to the Jedi during the whole Clone Wars era? Let me know what you think. And until the next time, remember, peace is a lie. And may the 4th be with you.